If you remember, we put our skulls into our peroxide water to soak overnight. So you can see that's really cleaned them up nice. And you can, like I said, you can see at the base where it was in the peroxide just a little bit, how it kind of lightened it a little bit. And after we're done bleaching it, I'll show you how to fix that. But we're going to go ahead and to get this, I mean, if this were to dry now, it'd come out really white. I can already tell by how nice it looks. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is mix up these two right here. I have a basic white extra brightening powder, and I get this at like any hair care product, anything like that. I get this at Sally's, both of these at Sally's. And then I have a 30 volume cream. And this is what I mix with the powder to make like a paste that I'm going to just use one of these disposable brushes. Of course, I reuse them. I just wash them and reuse them. But I just use one of these little brushes here to paint that paste onto my skulls. And then I'm going to let that sit overnight. Then I'm going to rinse it off and hang it up on the wall on one of my hooks and let it dry and let them know that it's done and ready to go home. But as you can see, so I've got my two things here, and basically I have two skulls to do. So I'm going to, your powder will come with a little scooper inside. So I have two skulls to do, so I'm just going to do two of these scoops into a mixing container. 2 scoops of the powder. And that's the basic white. Like I said, I get that at Sally's, any hair care. And so I have that, the powder. And then I'm going to take my liquid cream, and I am going to mix enough of that. I just kind of eyeball it, and I'm going to mix enough of that in here to kind of make a paste. You don't want it too runny. So I'm going to mix some in there, and I'm going to just put a little bit in there, and I'm going to see how thick that turns out, because I don't want to paint it on there and then it just run off. I want it to be thick enough, see, to where it sticks. It stays on that skull. So there we go. I got this mixed up, and as you can see, that's nice and thick. That's a nice consistency. I'm happy with that, so I'm not going to add any more of the liquid. I think it's developer. I think it is. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's developer, the cream developer. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my skull, and usually I start on the underside first. Okay? And I'm just going to start kind of painting it on there, like so. The underside, I'm not as, because once it's hanging on the wall, you're really not going to see it. So I just kind of put a light coat on the underside. I'm not as worried about the underside as I am about the top, but I get, but you can get a different angle on the inside of the eye sockets from underneath. And on the back here, back of the eyes. And then, of course, the back of your skull. Be careful not, now this is the one, that's why I like to thicken it up, because I can control it better. It's not making a mess everywhere. And see, I can get right up underneath the burrs, the base of those antlers, the burr bases. Oh, those antlers, nice and neatly, without getting it all over the antlers. See, I can be real nice and neat, and just make sure I keep that whitening paste on the bone. You don't want to get this on the antlers. Get this painted up here. I more or less kind of pat this on because when you brush it on, you kind of wipe it off. So I kind of just pat, 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 pat like that so that it, really sticks to. You're almost like sponging it on rather than painting it on. Because I'm going to make sure. And it's best I have found it's best to do this right when you take it out of the peroxide because it almost acts even more as a developer, the peroxide, the fresh peroxide. And it seems like when they're wet from the peroxide, they turn even whiter. I don't know if that's a thing, but it seems to work better for me that way. They seem to turn out whiter if I do this process right when I take them out of the peroxide, the water that I've had them soaking in. Okay, so see, I've got that one covered up real good, and I'm going to let that sit overnight. Set that one off to the side because I got another one to do here. Like I said, I'm going to take it right out of the bath that I had, the water and hydrogen, remember, the water and hydrogen peroxide bath that I had them submerged in. See how nice they look? This is just an easy, actually my daughter came up with this kind of method that we use, and it's worked really well for us, and the customers like it real well, and we seem to be able to get them out really quickly, and we have a nice turnout. But turnaround, I should say. So yeah, it only takes about, see, and that one, that nose bone right there is loose, and that happens sometimes when you boil. And what I'm going to do afterwards, after I bleach it, after I'm done with this process, I'm going to go in, after it dries up a little bit, sometimes I run a hair blow dryer on it, if it's not quite dry yet, and kind of heat up the bone a little bit, and I'll put some CA glue on that. I love CA glue. It's 10 times better than just regular super glue, and it doesn't come undone like super glue. I find super glue isn't as reliable in some things. So I love CA glue, and I use that junk on everything. So with especially with my skulls and stuff like that, I use. Now I don't use the spray primer or whatever that comes with the, what is that called? Some of the CA glues come with that spray. It's like an accelerant that makes it dry faster. Can't think of the name right off my top of my head for some reason. But I don't use that on my skulls because I have found that spray turns them pink. But if you just use the CA glue by itself, it'll be just fine. Dries clear as a bell. Now, you won't want to do the CA glue till you're done with this process, or else it won't penetrate the bleach or anything. And even if there's a spot you have to airbrush white, say you get a really old skull that has some staining on it that you just absolutely cannot get out, and you have to hit it up with the airbrush, I've had to do it before. Sometimes you just have to touch it up, whiten it up with an airbrush a little bit, and blend it in, make it look nice. I've had some dead heads that have come in that are literally like, maybe have sat for years. They either bury them under the ground or what have you, and they're in pretty rough shape. But I can get them white for the most part, but sometimes I have to touch them up with the airbrush just to even the whiteness out, the color in it, and it's just fine. But you want to wait to use the CA glue till after you do any painting, gluing, anything like that, because then you'll have an irregular spot, coloration on your skull or bone or whatever you're gluing, because of course the paint or whatever won't, or product will not penetrate the bone with that CA glue on there. So that's just something. So we'll fix that after we're done. Okay, and I've just about got this one coated right well. And then if I have any left over, I'll come back and just really pat, really, because the front of this eye really lathered on there almost like ice in a cake. I really put it on thick, especially the forehead. Let me get this guy in here too. You can see I'll really, with what I've got left, I'll really, here on the front, because that's really what you, when you hang it on the wall, that's really the part that you're seeing. I really want to make sure the front, and usually where you have the most staining is back here on the top of the head, because there's a lot of fat and cartilage and stuff like that back here, and that the oils from that will soak into the skull. So those are kind of trouble spots anyways. So I just put it thicker, and if you have some left over, why not? Why let it go to waste? So we're going to get that on there real good, real thick. Finish up what we got here, so none of it's going to waste. There's that. Turn these around so you can see them real well. I'm just going to make sure we get that leftover. And then you'll notice as it starts drying, it turns into like a foam. So, and it's going to kind of harden a little bit, not really hard, but it gets crusty, I should say. It gets kind of crusty on there, but I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to let these two guys sit overnight. We'll rinse them off tomorrow, and they'll be ready. They'll be ready to go home. They'll be nice and white. And that's how we do our Europeans. So we'll get a picture of them tomorrow after we rinse them off and dry it off, and I'll show you just kind of how I glue those nose bones to reinforce them, especially on younger deer, because they'll come loose anyways over time. The more it kind of breaks down and expands and is exposed to the air. So I usually just put a little CA glue on those joints of those nose bones anyways, just to ensure after the customer takes it home, they don't fall off later on down the road. Okay? All right, guys. We'll check these out tomorrow. Once I've let this bleach paste sit on these skulls overnight, I'm literally just going to rinse them off with regular water, and it just really just washes right off. Just literally just rinse them right off. And I like to use warmer water to do that. But as you can see, it just comes right off. I'm just going to rinse them, run them under this water and rinse them right off. All right, I'm going to finish rinsing these off, and then I'm going to take them into the shop and hang them up on the wall and let them dry for a little bit. And then I'm going to hair blow dry the nose so that I can make sure that I CA glue it real well, those nose bones, to make sure they don't pop off later on. Thank you for watching us here at KNC Taxidermy. Remember to like and subscribe us here on YouTube, and join us next time for our latest creation. And we'll see you then.